This is question 3 from book 1 based on the 2020 NEC by electricaltime.com. In a guest room in a hotel or motel, how many receptacle outlets shall be readily accessible? So we've got a couple of choices here. 1 readily accessible receptacle outlet, 2 readily accessible receptacle outlets, 3 readily accessible receptacle outlets, or 4 readily accessible receptacle outlets. All right, so when it comes to, the receptacle outlet placement in a hotel or motel, we got some special rules in there. And it's going to tell us how many of those receptacle outlets must be readily accessible. Just want to take 30 seconds to let you know what we do here at electricaltime.com. We do online electrical classes from the comfort of your home. And then we also have this free service. So if you click on the subscribe for free NEC questions, Monday through Friday, you'll get an NEC code question and an answer sent to your email. All right, so back to our video. And the answer to this question is going to be 2 readily accessible receptacle outlets. All right, so let's go now and see how we found this answer. So the first thing we're going to ask ourselves is, what article are we talking about here? And that is going to be Article 210, and that is called branch circuits. That's within Chapter 2, Wiring and Protection. It's in Part 3, which is called Required Outlets. And then we look in Part 3, and then we find 210.60, and that is titled Guest Rooms, Guest Suites, Dormitory Units, and Similar Occupancies. And then we see 210.60b, Receptacle Placement. 210.60b tells us to look at 210.52a for the total number. And again, I'm going to highlight that. It tells us to look at 210.52a for the total number of receptacle outlets that shall be installed, which are in the same general rules for the spacing of receptacles and dwelling units. From 210.52a, we see the general rules for making sure that the receptacles from any point measured horizontally along the floor line are not more than 6 feet away. And this is where we commonly hear about the 6 and 12-foot rule. We must also comply with the 2-foot rule for wall spaces about fixed panels and walls, and spaces by fixed room dividers, which can include railings and bar-type counters. Depending on the placement of the furniture, you might want to first decide on the placement of the 2 readily accessible receptacle outlets, and then use the 6 and 12-foot rule to calculate the total number of receptacle outlets for the rest of the general use receptacle outlets in the room. It also might be a good idea to mark the readily accessible receptacle outlets at the rough-in stage, and to have a furniture layout for each room to make the electrical inspector happy. And again, our answer is 2 readily accessible receptacle outlets. And you got to be careful with this one, because in 210.60b, it tells us about the total number of receptacle outlets. And it's telling us to use the same rules that we have in 210.52a, when we do our 6-foot and our 12-foot, measurements to see, where the receptacles are going to be. But in a hotel or motel, it's different. We just have to comply with the total number of receptacle outlets, and at least 2 of them have to be readily accessible. So if you got a receptacle outlet that's behind the bed, is that readily accessible? Do you think that the guest in the hotel is going to move the bed every time they have to plug something in? And the answer is no. So you got to make sure, if you are doing the rough-in for the hotel or motel, that you have to make sure that at least 2 receptacles are readily accessible. And then you're going to use the rules for 210.52a, and you're going to go around the room and measure, and you're going to say, okay, let's say you need 6 receptacle outlets for that room. So you're going to put 2 to be readily accessible, and there's going to probably be one, or maybe another one by the nightstands and some other places. So again, don't get mixed up on where you have to put those receptacles. That's not what they're telling us here. They're telling us the total number of receptacles. And to calculate that total number, we're going to use 210.52a. All right, I hope you enjoyed this question, and we will see you on the next one.